The baobab tree had a hole in its trunk big enough for a small child to hide inside. Owen pressed himself against the rough wood, hugging his stuffed elephant to his chest. His clothes were dirty and torn. His face had streaks where tears had washed away the dust. He was 6 years old, and he had been alone for 3 months. Outside the tree, the African sun beat down on the red sand. Everything was quiet except for the wind. But Owen knew quiet was dangerous now. Quiet meant the machines were coming back, that he remembered the day the sky burned. His parents had taken him on safari to see the animals. They were staying at a camp near the Kalahari Desert. Owen had been so excited to see lions and elephants. His mother had promised they would see giraffes too. Then the lights came. Bright streaks falling from the sky like shooting stars. But these stars didn't disappear. They hit the ground and everything exploded. His father grabbed him and ran. His mother was screaming something about getting to the jeep. They never made it. The ground shook and a wall of fire swept across the camp. His parents threw themselves over Owen, covering his body with theirs. He felt the terrible heat. He heard his mother crying. His father's last words were barely a whisper in his ear. Run to the ranger station. Follow the big trees. We love you. Then their weight became still and heavy. Owen had screamed and cried, but they wouldn't move. Somehow he crawled out from under them. Somehow he ran. He didn't know where he was going. He just ran until his legs stopped working and he fell face down in the sand. That's when Radel found him. Owen woke up with something rough licking his face. He opened his eyes and saw a creature he had seen in his animal books. Black and white fur with a stripe down its back. Small but thick and muscular. A honey badger. The animal made a strange, chittering sound and grabbed Owen's shirt sleeve with its teeth. It pulled him. Owen was too weak to resist. The badger dragged him across the sand to a small pool of water hidden behind some rocks. Owen drank until his stomach hurt. The honey badger sat and watched him. Its dark eyes were intelligent and focused. When Owen finished drinking, the creature waddled away into the bush. Owen followed without thinking. What else could he do? That was 3 months ago. Now Owen lived in the hollow tree and Radel brought him food. The honey badger hunted small animals and dug up roots. Sometimes it found fruits. Owen ate whatever Radel brought. He learned to trust the creature completely. Radel was different from the animals in his books. Normal honey badgers were tough and fearless, but Radel was something else. Something more. The creature seemed to understand what Owen needed before he asked. When Owen cried at night, Radel curled up against him and made soft, rumbling sounds. When danger came near, Radel became a different animal entirely. The metallic, buzzing sound cut through the afternoon air. Owen's breath caught in his throat. He knew that sound. The machines were back. Through a crack in the tree trunk, he saw it. A floating sphere covered in glowing panels and spinning sensors. It hovered over the desert, scanning everything. Red beams of light swept across the sand and rocks. Owen held perfectly still. Don't move. Don't breathe too loud. Don't let it find you. The drone moved closer. Its scanning beams passed over the baobab tree. The light turned orange, then yellow. The machine had detected something. It began to descend, a blur of black and white first shot out from behind a termite mound. Radel hit the ground running at full speed. The honey badger launched itself at the drone with a snarling roar that seemed too loud for such a small animal. The drone tried to rise higher, but Radel was already in the air. The creature grabbed onto the machine with its claws and immediately started tearing at the metal shell. Sparks flew. The drone spun wildly, trying to shake Radel off, but the honey badger held on with impossible strength. Radel's claws found a seam in the armor. The badger ripped the panel away and bit down on the wiring inside. The drone made a horrible screeching sound. Radel twisted its head and pulled out a cluster of glowing components. The machine dropped from the sky. Radel rode it down and jumped clear at the last second. The drone crashed into a boulder and shattered into pieces. The honey badger grabbed the largest chunk in its jaws and smashed it against the rocks again and again until nothing was left but scattered metal and broken glass. Owen stared in amazement. Radel had destroyed the machine in less than a minute. The creature trotted back to the tree, blood on its muzzle and scratches on its face, but otherwise unharmed. It looked up at Owen with those dark, intelligent eyes and made a soft, chuffing sound. Everything is safe now. That's what the sound meant. Owen knew it, even though he didn't understand how to. He climbed down from the tree and hugged Radel carefully. The honey badger allowed it for a moment before pulling away and sniffing the air. Always alert, always watching. Far above the planet, on a ship hidden among the stars, Commander Talvik studied the data from the destroyed drone. The screen showed the final seconds of footage. A small human child, and a creature that had just destroyed military hardware with its bare claws and teeth. Talvik's scaled hand tightened on the armrest. One human survivor. Just one child. The council had been very clear. No humans could be allowed to live. He pressed a button on his console. Send an elimination team to these coordinates. 6 of our best Dravik warriors. I want the human terminated within the cycle. An officer hesitated. Sir, the creature that destroyed the drone is an animal, Talvik interrupted. Our warriors have hunted far more dangerous prey. Send them now. The officer bowed and left. Talvik looked at the image of Owen frozen on his screen. Such a small thing to cause so much trouble. But the council's orders were absolute. Humans were too dangerous to exist. Every last one had to die. Even the children, especially the children. The Dravik warriors landed their shuttle 3 kilometers from the target zone. They moved through the desert in perfect formation, their armored bodies reflecting the moonlight. Each warrior stood over 2 meters tall, with thick carapaces covering their vital organs. They carried plasma rifles and energy blades. They had never failed a mission. Squad leader Harvin checked his scanner. The human biosignature was clear now, hiding in a cave system to the northeast. He signaled his team to advance. Remember, he said through the comm link, the target is a juvenile human. Approach with standard elimination protocols. Intelligence suggests local fauna in the area, but nothing of concern. One of the warriors, a younger Dravik named Salin, studied his datapad. Commander Talvik sent a warning about an Earth creature. A honey badger. It destroyed our scout drone. Harvin made a clicking sound that meant dismissal. Untouched. Nothing more. Stay focused on the human. They moved swiftly across the sand. Dravik were born hunters. Their home world was a brutal place of predators and toxic storms. They had evolved to kill and survive. One small earth animal was beneath their notice. Owen was dreaming when Radel woke him. The honey badger pushed its nose against Owen's face and made urgent chittering sounds. Owen opened his eyes. Something was wrong. Radel was agitated, pacing back and forth at the cave entrance. What is it? Owen whispered. Radel growled low in its throat. The sound sent chills down Owen's spine. He had never heard the creature make that noise before. It sounded like a warning, like rage building up inside something too small to contain it. Owen crawled deeper into the cave, clutching his stuffed elephant. Radel positioned itself at the entrance and went completely still. Waiting, the Dravik reached the cave within minutes. Harvin sent 2 warriors to circle around while he and the others approached from the front. Their weapons were charged and ready. This would be quick and clean. Then Harvin saw it. A small black and white creature sitting at the cave entrance. It looked like the images in the briefing. A honey badger, barely half a meter long, maybe 8 kilograms of weight. Its dark eyes watched them without fear. Harvin almost laughed. This was what destroyed their drone. Impossible. The drone must have malfunctioned. Clear the animal from the entrance, he ordered Salin. The young warrior approached confidently. He was twice as large as the other Dravik, bred from a warrior bloodline that went back centuries. He had killed prey animals on 12 different worlds. This would take seconds. Salin raised his armored boot to kick the creature aside. Radel moved. The honey badger exploded forward faster than Salin's eyes could track. It went straight for the warrior's leg joint where the armor had a seam. Radel's claws found the gap and dug in deep. Salin screamed and tried to shake the creature off, but Radel climbed up his leg with terrifying speed. The other Dravik opened fire. Energy bolts struck the sand where Radel had been a fraction of a second earlier. The honey badger was already on Salin's chest, claws ripping at the next seal of his armor. Blood sprayed across the sand. Salin fell backward. Radel jumped clear and charged the next warrior. This time, they were ready. 3 plasma rifles fired simultaneously. The beams should have vaporized the small animal. Radel twisted in midair, and the bolts passed harmlessly through empty space. The creature landed on the second warrior's chest plate and immediately targeted the helmet seal. Claws like razors peeled back the protective layer. Teeth found the soft throat beneath. Another Dravik fell. Harvin couldn't believe what he was seeing. 2 of his best warriors down in less than 30 seconds. Against a creature that weighed almost nothing. It was impossible. It violated every law of combat physics he knew. "Energy net," he shouted. "Pin it down." 2 warriors fired containment nets designed to capture and electrocute targets. The glowing mesh spread through the air. Radel ran straight at the nets instead of away. The creature ducked and rolled under the first one and leaped over the second. It was inside their defensive perimeter now. Harvin drew his energy blade and swung at the blur of fur rushing toward him. He was the fastest swordsman in 3 sectors. His blade had killed creatures that hunted in packs and stood 3 meters tall. But Radel was smaller, faster, and driven by something Harvin didn't understand. The honey badger went low, under his swing, and tore into his ankle joint. Harvin felt his leg collapse. He fell hard and tried to roll away, but Radel was already climbing his armor. Those dark eyes met his for just a moment. There was no animal instinct there. There was purpose. There was fury. There was protection that Radel's claws found his helmet seal. Harvin managed to grab the creature and throw it away with all his strength. The honey badger hit a rock wall hard enough to crack stone. It should have been dead or at least stunned. Radel shook itself once and charged again. The remaining 3 warriors formed a tight circle and fired everything they had. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, energy bursts. The desert lit up like daylight. Sand turned to glass. Rocks exploded into fragments. When the smoke cleared, Radel stood in the center of a crater, completely unharmed. Somehow the creature had dodged every shot. It looked at the warriors with those intelligent eyes and made a sound like grinding metal and breaking bones. Then it attacked all 3 at once. Owen watched from deep inside the cave, his hands covering his ears. The sounds were terrible. Weapons firing, metal tearing, warriors screaming. It lasted 4 minutes. Then everything went quiet. Radel limped back into the cave. The honey badger was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Its fur was matted with blood, some of it not its own. But it walked straight to Owen and sat down beside him as if nothing had happened. Owen's hand shook as he tore strips from his shirt. He wrapped them around Radel's worst cuts, tying them as carefully as he could. The honey badger sat still and let him work. When Owen finished, Radel licked his hand once and then curled up against his leg. "Thank you," Owen whispered. "Thank you for protecting me." Radel made a soft, rumbling sound deep in its chest. Outside the cave, 6 Dravik warriors lay dead in the sand. Their weapons were scattered and broken. Their armor was torn open like paper that on his ship above the planet. Commander Talvik watched the emergency beacon data upload. His screen showed the final moments from Harvin's helmet camera. The creature moving too fast to track. The impossible dodges. The brutal efficiency. Talvik had been a military commander for 40 years. He had seen many things, but he had never seen anything like this. He replayed the footage 3 times, trying to understand how a small Earth mammal could destroy 6 elite warriors. Then he noticed something in the background of the final frame. Through the cave entrance, barely visible in the darkness, a human child, watching, and the expression on the boy's face wasn't fear. It was trust. Complete and absolute trust in the creature protecting him. Talvik's blood went cold. He opened a secure channel to the Council's central command. This was beyond a simple elimination mission now. This required authorization for heavy weapons and a full tactical battalion. Because whatever that creature was, it wasn't fighting for territory or food. It was fighting for the child. And nothing in the galaxy was more dangerous than something willing to die for what it loved. 2 weeks passed in the wilderness. Owen and Radel moved constantly now, never staying in one place for more than a single night. The honey badger seemed to know they were being hunted. It led Owen through rocky terrain where machines couldn't easily follow, through thorny bushes that shredded his clothes but kept them hidden. Owen learned to survive. Radel showed him which plants were safe to eat and which would make him sick. The creature dug up roots and brought him fruits from trees he couldn't climb. When Owen was thirsty, Radel led him to hidden water sources that looked like nothing more than damp sand until you dug down to T-Night. Owen talked to his only friend. He told Radel about his parents, about his home, about the toys he used to have and the games he used to play. The honey badger always listened, those dark eyes focused on Owen's face. Sometimes it made soft sounds back as if answering. Owen started to feel like Radel understood every word. That was crazy, he knew. Animals couldn't understand human speech. But there were moments when Radel would react to something Owen said before he even finished saying it. Like the creature knew what he needed before he asked. "Do you think anyone else is alive?" Owen asked one night. They were sheltering under an overhang of rock, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "My mom always said the world was really big. Maybe someone else survived too." Radel shifted closer and put its head on Owen's leg. The gesture was clear. "You're not alone. You have me." Owen scratched behind the creature's ears. "Yeah, I have you. And you're pretty tough, aren't you? Those metal monsters don't scare you at all." The honey badger made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been a promise. Either way, it made Owen feel safer. Far above them, in the cold darkness of space, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 47 species appeared as holographic projections in the Grand Chamber. Commander Talvik stood at the center, presenting his report. "The human survivor remains at large," he said. His voice carried to every corner of the massive room. "We have now lost 6 elite warriors and multiple reconnaissance assets. The tactical situation is unprecedented." A counselor from the Brevix delegation, a creature that looked like a floating mass of tentacles, pulsed with bioluminescent disagreement. "This is absurd. You are telling us that one human child has defeated our forces? A child who, by your own reports, weighs less than 30 kilograms. Not the child," Talvik corrected. "The creature protecting it. An Earth species called a honey badger. It displays combat capabilities far beyond any known biological parameters. It moves faster than our targeting systems can track. It withstands damage that would kill species 3 times its size. And most concerning, it fights with what appears to be tactical intelligence." The council chamber filled with sounds of disbelief and concern. Counselors argued among themselves in a dozen different languages. Finally, the High Chancellor, an ancient being whose species had founded the council millennia ago, raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Talvik chose his words carefully. "I believe we should consider a monitoring protocol rather than elimination. One human child poses no threat to galactic security. We could establish a containment zone and observe." "No." The word came from Counselor Dravak, a species known for their militant approach to threats. Humans were declared extinct for a reason. They possess abilities that make them fundamentally dangerous. We cannot allow even one to survive. That was the unanimous decision of this council 3 months ago. But circumstances have changed, Talvik argued. "We did not send a full tactical battalion," Dravak interrupted. "Use heavy weapons. Authorize orbital support if needed. I want that human eliminated within the next planetary cycle. No exceptions. No merci." The vote was called. 38 species voted for elimination. 9 voted for monitoring. The decision was made. Talvik bowed his head in acceptance. He had served the council for his entire adult life. He had never questioned their orders before. But as he left the chamber to organize the assault, something felt wrong in a way he couldn't name. On Earth, Owen woke to find Radel already awake and alert. The honey badger was sniffing the air, its body tense. Owen knew that posture now. Danger was coming. "How many this time?" he whispered. Radel made a series of short growling sounds. Owen didn't know how he understood, but he did. "Many. More than before. Too many." The creature led him quickly through the pre-dawn darkness. They moved fast, Radel always checking back to make sure Owen could keep up. They reached an abandoned mine shaft just as the sun began to rise. The entrance was partially collapsed, but there was a gap large enough to squeeze through. Owen crawled inside with Radel right behind him. The shaft went deep into the earth, supported by old wooden beams. It smelled of dust and stone and ancient darkness. They moved down the tunnel until they found a chamber with multiple exits. A good place to defend, Owen thought, though he didn't know how he knew that. Radel positioned itself at the main entrance and waited. The honey badger's breathing was calm and steady. No fear, never any fear. Owen sat against the wall and hugged his knees to his chest. His stuffed elephant was getting worn out from being carried everywhere. One of its ears was torn, but he held it tight anyway because it reminded him that he used to have a normal life. A life with parents and safety and birthday cakes. "I'm scared," he admitted to Radel. The honey badger looked back at him. In the dim light from the entrance, Owen could see those dark, intelligent eyes. And somehow he knew what Radel was saying without words. "Be scared. Fear is smart. But I'm here. And while I'm here, nothing will touch you." Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. Gunships appeared on the horizon, dozens of them. Transport vehicles carrying hundreds of soldiers. Automated weapons platforms that could level buildings. All of it converging on one location. Commander Talvik watched from his command ship, tracking the assault force on his tactical display. He had committed overwhelming firepower to this mission. There was no way a single animal, no matter how fierce, could stand against this. But as the first gunship approached the mine entrance and Talvik saw that small black and white shape emerge to face them, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of military service. Doubt. The honey badger looked up at the approaching army and roared. The sound was impossibly loud, carrying across the desert like thunder. It was a challenge. It was a promise. It was the sound of something small and fierce telling the universe itself that it would not yield. The battle for the last human child was about to begin. The first gunship fired a missile at the mine entrance. Radel was already moving before the weapon launched. The honey badger's instincts, or something beyond instincts, predicted the attack. The missile struck empty ground and exploded in a cloud of sand and rock. Radel emerged from the smoke running at full speed toward the nearest gunship. The pilot never had a chance to react. Radel leaped an impossible height and latched onto the ship's underside. Its claws found purchase on the smooth metal, and it began climbing. Soldiers inside the ship fired through the open side door, but the honey badger was too fast. Circling the hull like gravity meant nothing. Radel reached the engine intake and didn't hesitate. The creature thrust its entire head into the mechanism and bit down on something vital. Sparks erupted. The engine whined and died. The gunship tilted sideways and began to fall. Radel jumped clear the last moment, landing on the sand as the gunship crashed behind it. The honey badger was already charging the next target before the wreckage stopped burning. Owen watched from the mine entrance, his heart pounding. There were so many of them. Ships and soldiers and machines everywhere. How could Radel fight them all? But the honey badger wasn't fighting like a normal animal. It moved with purpose, with strategy. When soldiers formed defensive lines, Radel went around them. When energy shields activated, the creature found gaps and weak points. When automated turrets tracked its position, Radel was never where the weapons expected. A squad of 30 soldiers advanced on foot, firing coordinated volleys of plasma bolts. The desert floor turned to glass from the heat. Radel ran through the barrage like rain couldn't touch it. The creature went low, zigzagging between shots, then launched itself at the lead soldier. The soldier wore full combat armor designed to withstand direct hits from anti-vehicle weapons. Radel's claws found the next seal in 2 seconds. The soldier went down. The creature was already moving to the next one. Commander Talvik watched his tactical display with growing horror. His forces were suffering casualties at an alarming rate. The honey badger was destroying military hardware worth millions of credits and killing trained soldiers faster than he could commit reinforcements. "All units, concentrate fire on Grid 77 Alpha," he ordered. "Maximum suppression. I want that area saturated with ordnance." 20 gunships converged on the location. Their weapons lit up the dawn sky. Energy cannons, missiles, kinetic accelerators, everything firing at once. The ground exploded in a storm of destruction that could have leveled a small city. When the bombardment ended, there was a crater 30 meters wide. Smoke rose from the melted sand. Nothing could have survived that. Nothing biological, anyway. Then Radel crawled out of a fissure in the rock 50 meters away. The creature was singed and bleeding, but very much alive. It had somehow found shelter in the seconds before the bombardment hit. Now, it was angry. The honey badger charged straight at a gunship that was hovering low to assess damage. It climbed the landing gear and ripped open the pilot's cockpit. The ship careened wildly and crashed into 2 other vessels. All 3 exploded in a massive fireball. Soldiers on the ground activated energy nets and containment fields. They created a perimeter and tried to box Radel in. The honey badger ran directly into the nets, took the electrical shock that would have killed most creatures, and tore through the energy field with its claws. 3 soldiers died before they could even raise their weapons. This went on for hours. The sun climbed high in the sky, and the battle raged across the desert. Owen lost count of how many attackers fell. He lost count of how many times Radel should have died, but didn't. The honey badger just kept fighting with a ferocity that seemed to grow stronger as the battle continued. But Radel was taking damage. Burns from energy weapons, cuts from flying shrapnel, a limp in its left leg where something had struck hard. The creature was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but it never slowed down, never retreated, never stopped protecting the mine entrance where Owen HID.I in orbit. Talvik made a decision he had never made before. He accessed classified council files using his command codes. Files marked for emergency use only. Files about humanity and why they had been sentenced to extinction. What he read made his blood run cold. Humanity possessed something the council had discovered too late. A gift, a curse, a biological imperative coded into their very DNA. Humans form bonds with other species. Deep psychic bonds that transcended normal biological limits. The ancient texts called it the companion gift. When a human bonded with another creature, they shared life force. They shared abilities. They shared determination and will and the fundamental refusal to surrender while the other still lived. The bond made both parties stronger, faster, harder to kill. And the stronger the emotional connection, the more powerful the bond became. The council had exterminated humanity because of this gift, because bonded humans and their companions had proven unstoppable in the past, because entire civilizations had fallen to bonded pairs fighting with impossible coordination and strength. The council thought they had acted in time. They thought they had wiped out humanity before the bonds could form. But they had missed one child, one traumatized orphan boy in the wilderness. And in his grief and desperation, that child had bonded with the first creature that showed him kindness, that a honey badger. An earth animal already famous for its fearlessness and ferocity, now enhanced by the companion gift, made nearly invincible by a 6-year-old's desperate need for protection and love. Talvik stared at his tactical display. 53 soldiers dead, 17 gunships destroyed, multiple automated weapons platforms offline, all because of one small animal bonded to one human child, and the battle wasn't even close to over. His remaining forces were preparing for another assault. More soldiers, heavier weapons. They would keep coming until either Radel fell or his entire battalion was destroyed. Talvik made his decision. He opened a priority channel to the Galactic Council. This is Commander Talvik. I am declaring the human survivor an alpha-level extinction threat, requesting authorization for planetary bombardment. The response came within minutes. Authorization granted. A Worldbreaker-class vessel was being dispatched. When it arrived, it would sterilize the entire region from orbit. Nothing would survive. Not the child. Not the creature. Not even the sand itself. Talvik closed the channel and looked at his tactical screen. On the ground, Radel had just destroyed another gunship and was charging into a group of soldiers who were already retreating in panic. The honey badger was winning. Against all logic and reason, it was actually winning. But it wouldn't matter. In 2 days, the World Breaker would arrive, and no bond, no matter how strong, could stand against weapons designed to crack planets. For the first time in his military career, Commander Talvik felt ashamed of his orders. But he would follow them anyway, because that's what soldiers did. They followed orders. Even when those orders meant killing a child and the only thing in the universe that loved him. The battalion retreated at sunset. Commander Talvik ordered all surviving forces to pull back and establish a perimeter 5 kilometers from a mine. They would wait for the World Breaker to arrive and finish what conventional weapons could not in the mine shaft. Owen carefully cleaned Radel's wounds with water from his canteen. The honey badger was hurt worse than ever before. Deep cuts across its side, burns from energy weapons. One eye was swollen shut. But the creature sat patiently while Owen worked, making soft rumbling sounds to let the boy know it was okay. "You're so brave," Owen whispered. Tears ran down his dirty face. "I don't know why you protect me. I'm nobody special. I'm just a kid." Radel bumped its head against Owen's chest. The gesture said everything. "You're not nobody. You're everything. You're the reason I fight." Owen didn't understand how he knew what the creature meant. He just did. Like there was a connection between them that went deeper than words. When Radel hurt, Owen felt it. When Owen was afraid, Radel knew it. They were linked somehow. Two beings that should have been separated by species and language, connected by something neither of them had a name for. That night, Owen dreamed strange dreams. He was running across the desert, but his body felt different. Smaller, faster, lower to the ground. He could smell things he had never smelled before. Individual scents for each rock and plant and living creature. He could hear heartbeats from hundreds of meters away. Then the perspective shifted, and he was looking at himself through someone else's eyes. He saw his own small body curled up in a mine shaft. He felt an overwhelming surge of protective instinct. "Mine, my human, my child to guard." Owen woke with a gasp. Radel was sleeping beside him, the creature's chest rising and falling slowly. Had he just seen through the honey badger's eyes? Had he felt what Radel felt? That was impossible, but so was everything else that had happened. Commander Talvik couldn't sleep. He sat in his quarters staring at the classified files about humanity. The more he read, the more disturbed he became. The Council hadn't exterminated humans because they were violent or dangerous in the traditional sense. Humans were actually less aggressive than dozens of other species. Humans were dangerous because of what they became when they bonded. The ancient records showed examples. A human girl bonded with a serpent creature on Telos 4. Together, they had toppled a corrupt government and freed millions of enslaved beings. A human man bonded with a predator from the ice world of Valmar. They had stopped an invasion fleet single-handedly. The man's strategic thinking combined with the predator's physical abilities. Over and over, the pattern repeated. Bonded humans achieved impossible things. They inspired others. They united divided peoples. They overthrew tyrants and stood against injustice with a stubbornness that could not be broken. That was why the Council feared them. Not because of what they destroyed, but because of what they created. Bonded humans made the galaxy want to be better. They asked questions about authority and tradition and whether the way things were was actually how things should be. The Council, Talvik realized with growing horror, had committed genocide to preserve their own power. He stood and walked to the observation window. Below, the Earth turned slowly in the darkness. A beautiful planet, now empty except for one child and one impossibly fierce guardian. Talvik made a decision. He accessed the communication array and recorded a message. Not to the Council, but to the broader galactic network. An open broadcast that anyone could receive. "My name is Commander Talvik of the Galactic Council Security Forces. I am about to share classified information that will cost me my career and likely my life. But you deserve to know the truth about humanity." He uploaded everything. The classified files. The research on the companion gift. The real reason for Earth's extermination. The existence of the surviving human child and the creature protecting him. All of it. Then he erased his command codes and stole a shuttle from the hangar bay. Security tried to stop him, but he had been a commander for too long. He knew the blind spots in their systems. He knew how to disappear. The shuttle raced toward Earth's surface. Talvik knew he had maybe 6 hours before the Worldbreaker arrived. 6 hours to reach the child and warn him. 6 hours to try and undo some of the evil he had participated in. Back in the mine, Owen sensed something approaching. Not through his ears or eyes. Through that strange connection he shared with Radel. The honey badger was suddenly alert, staring toward the mine entrance. More soldiers? Owen asked. Radel made an uncertain sound. Not soldiers. Something different. The shuttle landed near the mine entrance. Talvik stepped out slowly, his hands raised to show he was unarmed. He was a tall being, reptilian in appearance, wearing a commander's uniform. But his posture was non-threatening. Radel growled low in its throat and positioned itself between Talvik and the mine entrance. "I'm not here to hurt you," Talvik called out. "I'm here to warn you. Please, I need to speak with the human child. I have information that might save his life." Owen emerged from the mine slowly, staying behind Radel. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Talvik was surprised the child could speak Galactic Standard. Then he remembered the files mentioned humans learned languages incredibly quickly. "You don't. You have no reason to trust me. But in 6 hours, a Worldbreaker ship will arrive. It carries weapons that can destroy continents. They're going to use it on this location. You need to run. You need to hide somewhere they can't find you." "Why would you tell us this?" Owen asked. "Because I read the truth about your species. I know now what the Council did was wrong. Humans aren't the monsters they claimed you were. You're just people who formed deep bonds with other creatures. That's not evil. That's beautiful." Radel's growling softened slightly. The honey badger could sense Talvik's sincerity. Or maybe Owen could sense it through their connection, and Radel trusted Owen's judgment. "There's more," Talvik continued. "I broadcast the truth about humanity to the entire galaxy. By now, millions of beings know what the Council did. Some of them won't care, but others will. Some species have been waiting for a reason to break away from Council authority. Your existence, your survival with your bonded companion, might be that reason." Owen stepped out from behind Radel, though the honey badger stayed close. "What does that mean?" "It means you're not just a child anymore. You're a symbol. You're proof that the Council lied and committed genocide to protect their power. And symbols are dangerous things, especially when they refuse to die." A proximity alarm sounded from Talvik's communicator. He checked it, and his face went pale. "They're early. The Worldbreaker just entered orbit. We have minutes, not hours." Owen looked at Radel. The honey badger looked back at him. In that exchange, an entire conversation happened without words. "We can't run fast enough. We can't hide from weapons like that. This is the end." Then Talvik's communicator lit up with incoming signals. Lots of them. Ships dropping out of hyperspace. Not Council ships, other species. 6 different civilizations that had just received Talvik's broadcast. They had sent their fleets not to attack Earth, but to defend it. To stand between the Worldbreaker and the last human child. Talvik looked at the readings in disbelief. They came. They actually came. Owen didn't understand what was happening, but Radel seemed to sense it. The honey badger made a sound that might have been hope. Maybe they would survive this after all. The sky above Earth filled with ships. The Worldbreaker hung in orbit like a dark moon, its weapons charging with enough power to burn entire continents. But between it and the planet, 6 different species had positioned their fleets. Hundreds of vessels forming a protective barrier. Commander Talvik listened to the communication channels in amazement. The species were arguing with the Council, demanding they call off the attack. Some were species that had been Council members for centuries. Others were newcomers who had always felt oppressed by Council authority. All of them were willing to fight to protect one human child. "This is unprecedented," Talvik said. He was sitting with Owen near the mine entrance, Radel positioned protectively between them. In 10,000 years of Galactic Council history, nothing like this has ever happened. Owen didn't fully understand galactic politics, but he understood that people were trying to help him. Strangers he had never met were putting themselves in danger for him. "Why? They don't even know me." "Because you represent something they thought was dead. Hope. The possibility of change. Proof that the Council can be wrong." Talvik looked at the boy and the honey badger. Your bond with that creature has inspired beings across the galaxy. They see you protecting each other, and they remember what it means to care about something more than power or control. In orbit, the standoff continued. The Worldbreaker's captain demanded the defending ships move aside. The Council invoked ancient laws and treaties. But the defending species refused to yield. This wasn't about laws anymore. This was about right and wrong. Then something unexpected happened. Ships began arriving from Earth's surface. Not alien ships, human ships. Old transport vessels and cargo haulers that had somehow survived the initial bombardment. And inside them were people. Humans who had been hiding in underground shelters in remote locations for 3 months, too afraid to reveal themselves. They had heard Talvik's broadcast. They had learned about Owen and the creature protecting him. And they decided they were tired of hiding. 12 ships total, carrying maybe 200 survivors. They were ragged and traumatized and barely equipped. But they flew up to join the defensive fleet. When asked why, their leader, a woman named Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, gave a simple answer. That's our child down there. That's our future. We're not hiding anymore. Owen watched the ships rise from different parts of the planet on Talvik's scanner display. Tears ran down his face. There are others. I'm not the only one left. You were never alone, Talvik said gently. You were just the first one brave enough to be found. The Worldbreaker's captain made his decision. He couldn't fire on the child with so many ships in the way, but he could fire on the ships themselves. Council law gave him that authority. Any species that opposed Council military actions could be declared hostile. The Worldbreaker's main cannon began to charge. A weapon capable of cracking a planet, aimed at the defending fleet. Radel suddenly stood up and looked at the sky. The honey badger made a sound Owen had never heard before. Not a growl or a chirp. Something else. A call. A summons. Like the creature was reaching out to something beyond normal senses. Owen felt it through their bond. Radel wasn't just calling to one thing. The honey badger was calling to everything. On Earth's surface, animals began to react. Lions and elephants and birds and insects. Creatures across the planet felt the summons. And those closest to hiding humans responded. An elephant stood beside a human family hiding in a cave. A wolf pack surrounded a group of survivors in the northern forests. A massive saltwater crocodile positioned itself in front of a shelter on the coast. The bonds were forming. Not just between Owen and Radel anymore. Between humans and creatures all across the planet. Desperate people reaching out for connection in their darkest moment. Animals responding to that desperate need. In orbit, the defending species sensors detected the change. Energy signatures spiking across Earth's surface. Biological readings that didn't match any known patterns. The companion gift was awakening on a planetary scale. The Worldbreaker fired 0.6 species threw everything they had into deflecting the blast. Energy shields overlapped and reinforced each other. Point defense systems intercepted the weapon's secondary effects. Ships positioned themselves to absorb the impact. The blast should have destroyed the entire fleet. Instead, it scattered against their combined defenses. 3 ships were lost. 20 more were damaged. But the fleet held. The weapon that could crack planets had failed to break their will to protect. On Earth, Radel relaxed slightly. The immediate danger had passed. But the honey badger stayed alert. The battle wasn't over. It took 3 more days. 3 days of the Council trying to break the blockade. 3 days of more species joining the defense. 3 days of humanity emerging from hiding and bonding with the creatures that chose to protect them. On the 4th day, the Galactic Council fractured. 23 species formally withdrew their membership. They formed a new alliance based on cooperation instead of control. They called it the Free Collective. The remaining Council species retreated. They declared Earth a quarantined world and warned that any species that visited it would be considered enemies. But they couldn't stop the truth from spreading. The galaxy now knew about the companion gift. They knew about the genocide. They knew the Council had lied. Owen stood at the edge of the desert with Radel beside him. Dr. Rodriguez and other human survivors were establishing a settlement nearby. Children played in the sand under the watchful eyes of bonded animals. A new society was forming, different from what came before. Humans and creatures together, connected by bonds deeper than words. Talvik had chosen to stay on Earth. He said he was done being a soldier for a corrupt system. Now he wanted to help build something better. What happens now? Owen asked him. Talvik looked at the boy and smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in years. Now you grow up. You and all the other bonded humans. You show the galaxy what they could have had if they'd chosen cooperation over fear. You become what you were always meant to be. What's that? Teachers. Friends. Bridges between species. The thing the council feared most. You become the future. Owen looked down at Radel. The honey badger looked back with those dark, intelligent eyes. The creature had scars now from the battles it had fought, but it had never wavered, never given up, never stopped protecting its human. Owen knelt down and hugged the honey badger carefully. Thank you for everything, for saving me, for being my friend when I had no one. Radel made its soft, rumbling sound and licked Owen's face. The gesture meant what it had always meant. You don't need to thank me. Protecting you isn't a duty. It's what I choose. Because you're mine and I'm yours, and that bond is worth more than the entire galaxy combined. High above Earth, ships from a dozen different species maintained their watch. Not as conquerors or enforcers, as guardians, because they had seen what one child and one fierce creature could inspire. They had seen the power of bonds formed in love instead of fear. The Galactic Council had tried to erase humanity to maintain control. Instead, they had created exactly what they feared, a symbol of resistance, proof that different species could work together, a future built on connection instead of domination. Owen didn't know it yet, but he wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was the first of a new generation. Human children bonded with creatures from Earth and beyond, growing up together, learning from each other, becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. The Council had wanted to prevent humanity from changing the galaxy. They were 3 months too late. The change had already begun, and it started with one 6-year-old boy and one impossibly fierce honey badger who refused to let him die alone. The Galactic Council erased entire species.